Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody. It's Tuesday, February the 26th, 2019, and it's 11:03 a.m. Welcome to the Case Review Committee. 11:32, excuse me, a.m. Welcome to the Case Review Subcommittee meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Okay, next we have Charlie.
Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Harrison.
Sure, the last POB meeting, you had a gentleman speak during the public comment period concerning a complaint that he had filed with your executive director that was apparently refused, rejected, I don't know what. So I'm here today to verbally or orally file 2 complaints against your executive director for not following the ordinance or the CASA that both require all complaints filed with the CPOA to be investigated. Last year I filed 2 complaints with Mr. Harness, and they are here. One concern that he rejected. One concerns a police officer that was found to have driven his patrol car, crashed it, abandoned it while under the influence of alcohol. That office, at the time of my complaint, which was February of last year, I was complaining about what the current command staff at APD was doing concerning an SOP that requires the immediate termination of an officer found to have driven his patrol car under the influence of alcohol. That complaint was rejected unilaterally by your executive director, not investigated at all. And
By that, do you mean it was administratively closed?
no, ma'am. He rejected this. There was no investigation. There was nothing. He did nothing. He rejected my complaint.
I heard you. You've got 3 minutes. So
Which is against the CASA and against your ordinance. Okay. So here is that complaint from February of last year. Now, in May of last year, I filed another complaint that Mr. Harness completely ignored. I have no records of him responding to me at all. And in that complaint, I attached, it was an email of course, I attached about 70 pages of information. And this goes back to the very beginning of the Police Oversight Board holding meetings. At the very first meeting back in March of 2015, there was a case where an officer accessed the NCIC database.
I remember it.
And gave information to an estranged boyfriend or husband or whatever it was, and placed a woman in jeopardy. And she filed a complaint about that, and the board took some serious looks at that. Okay. Well,
That's your 3 minutes.
in that, I'm almost done. In that investigation, it was found that the officer lied about her accessing the NCIC database. Under federal law, it's my understanding under federal law, that when a police officer lies in an internal investigation, that information is supposed to be sent to the local district attorney's office. It's commonly referred to as the Brady list. Okay. I filed a complaint in May of last year that Mr. Harness completely ignored. I got no response from him whatsoever concerning APD's policies on the Brady list. They have none. And I provided him all of the information in that email of my complaint that was completely ignored. So here is that complaint. Like I said, along with these, I'm refiling these with you now, okay?
I don't think that's the right way to do this.
That's- that
We
one-
need to do it with them.
Well, fine.
You're letting us
Okay,
know.
I'm
I get
letting
it.
you know, and I'm doing it publicly
Okay.
so that there can be no arguments that these were filed. Now, I have a third new complaint that I am filing today in public so that there's no argument that hasn't been filed. And this concerns some more information that's come out in this case of the 7-year-old girl who was prostituted by her parents. So there is a copy of that for you, and there is a copy of it for Mr. Harness.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison.
Thank you.
Okay, so Director Harness, so he submits these to you then, complaints against you, or how does this
Just take them and you have them.
There's no way to discuss it right now.
Okay, no, I'm just asking for formality, I mean, what's the procedure here?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, I have them, so.
okay, thank you. Okay, welcome everyone to the Police Oversight Board Case Review Committee. It is Tuesday, April the 23rd, 2019 at 11:29 a.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Okay, next we have public comments. We have Mr. Charles Arson, excuse me.
It takes a while. I just
You have
wanted-
3 minutes.
I don't think I'll take up that much time. 2 months ago, at your February meeting, I filed 2 verbal complaints against your executive director for violations of the ordinance and the CASA for refusing to take complaints. I've heard nothing. I've had no feedback on that whatsoever. And after that February meeting, I watched your full board meeting, which was a few days later, and there was no mention of my being even present at this February meeting or what I had to say. And that concerns me. That and that I haven't heard anything in almost 60 days concerns me, especially when your policies and procedures, I believe it's under Article 3, paragraph F, says that subcommittees shall report on all matters referred to them without unnecessary delay. And if a subcommittee refuses or neglects to report on any matter referred to it, the chairperson, referring to the chairperson of the full board, may take the matter from the subcommittee. So I'm just questioning what's going on here because I haven't heard anything in 60 days over these 2 matters.
Mr. Harris, would you like to address that?
There were actually 3 complaints that day?
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm
Okay.
talking about 2 complaints that I made concerning violations of the ordinance and the CASA, wherein your executive director refused to investigate 2 complaints that I made in early 2018. I refiled those 2 complaints that day in February of this year, and I filed a new third complaint, and I haven't heard anything on those either. I haven't gotten any letters. I haven't gotten any calls for interviews, to do an interview.
We all remember what you said.
Yeah, all those kinds of things, okay.
Now it's Mr. Harness's
What I'm talking
turn.
about is 2 complaints concerning violations of the ordinance and the CASA.
Mr. Harness, would you like to address these issues?
Those 3 have been opened in our system, and they're currently in the investigative process. I did not interpret them. I took them in as complaints, so we have them, and they're in our system. I did not interpret them as Mr. Harrison actually directing a complaint about me to you. So I can go back and I can look at that and I can pull whatever verbiage perhaps indicates that it's a complaint against me, and then I can submit it to the board.
And is it, I just want to clarify that complaints, the process for complaints is not to file them with this committee, but to file complaints through the CPOA, is that correct?
Yes, and the nature of the complaints from Mr. Arisom, the one we explained to him that that file would have certainly been too large to come through our email, and we did not receive it. And so then it was subsequently handled and opened. The other was an issue which there was a parallel internal affairs investigation, which I explained to Mr. Arisom during that time. And then the third one is...
And what's the significance of that? That it has to be completed by IA before we
right,
review
that we don't do duplicative investigations.
But we would get it possibly
We
after.
could possibly get it for a review. And
Wait.
then the third one is related to 13218. So that's what he brought to us at that meeting. I'm handling them like another complaint.
Okay. And in the time frame, and that includes prioritization of complaints, so something that might be more urgent, deemed by the staff to be more urgent, would take precedence over that. Would that explain the delay?
Yes, and then I've actually assigned them to me, and I'll be doing the investigation.
Okay.
Because they're matters that I've already dealt with.
Okay. And none of that is complaints about you that you're investigating?
No.
Is that correct? Okay, so that I think I don't know what happened at the last board meeting, but it was my understanding, it's been my understanding that the conversation that we've had in the personnel committee has to do with if people have complaints about you in particular, then they would file those complaints with the chair of the committee, or that was what was being discussed. The chair of personnel.
The chair of the board, yeah.
Chair of the board, excuse me, you're right. Mr. Arisom, just for your edification, if you have a complaint about Mr. Harness, then that is an avenue that we're developing to make a complaint specifically about, and only Mr. Harness, not the rest of the staff. That would go to Mr. Harness if it was about the other staff members, so that the public can have a vehicle by which to lodge those complaints, and the appropriate path, though I don't know this is past the board yet, it was part of the discussion we had recently. It would go to the chair of the board, and if it's a personnel matter, if you feel like somebody's mishandling their job, that the only person that affects is Mr. Harness. All other complaints go through the regular process.
Okay, so that discussion was in a closed session?
We were
Executive session?
in personnel.
The executive session, okay. Because
No, that discussion did not happen in closed session. That's
this is the first, this is the first discussion.
It's part of the revamping of the personnel policies and all of that. So we're doing lots of things with that and getting feedback.
I was never informed of any of this. It's been 60 days. And it says right here in your own policies that you adopted, I believe, back in November, that subcommittees shall report all matters referred to them without unnecessary delay.
So it's your expectation that everybody who testifies or makes a public comment, there should be some relaying of that at the board meeting? That's your expectation?
Yes, ma'am.
That's not my expectation.
Especially when I sit down here on camera and tell you that I'm filing 2 verbal complaints against your executive director for violations of the ordinance and the CASA.
So,
Absolutely.
so excuse me, so at this point, do you want him just to go ahead and write a complaint and send it to the personnel board?
So I'm not sure if you're complaining about the cases that we're talking about, or if you're complaining about Mr. Harness, which is why I'm bringing this up.
I'm very clear here. I am complaining 2 complaints about Mr. Harness violating the ordinance and the CASA for not accepting complaints against Albuquerque police officers.
Okay, that's a
staff.
matter of opinion. He has a different view of that, and our job is to assess that. But what I'm saying
It's
to
been
you,
60 days.
okay, is there something in there that says it has to be within 60 days?
It says,
As quickly as possible?
subcommittee shall report on all matters referred to them without unnecessary delay.
Oh, so to be clear, so your complaint is that we did not say you have a complaint about Mr. Harness
No, I'm not
at the
complaining
board
at all,
meeting?
I'm questioning. I'm asking what's going on here. Why haven't I heard anything? It's been 60 days. There's been nothing said in public at any of the full board
I don't
meetings.
know why you're here at this meeting talking about that. Why are you
Because
not?
I did it. Subcommittee shall report on all matters referred to them. I referred these matters
Well,
to you
my
2
question is
months
whether
ago.
or not referring it to this committee is appropriate. I'm not arguing with your ability to do this.
Well-
I'm asking you,
It doesn't say it
and I'm
isn't.
trying to give you more
I don't
information.
see in your policies where it says it isn't.
Fine.
So,
Let's deal with what's appropriate to this committee, which is the cases. And that's the appropriate thing. If you have a complaint about Mr. Harness, you should file that complaint with Chantel Galloway, the chair of the committee, of the board.
When we received those, I took them in as complaints, so that's why.
That's what I'm assuming too.
They were.
So is there a reason that we did not deal with those in
Mix
60
them
days?
apples and oranges.
We're dealing with them in the due course of all of our investigations.
That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about here.
I assume the time's up, is that
yes.
correct?
Yes,
Okay.
And, oh, by the way, there's another thing I wanted to mention to y'all. Your policies and procedures also say that these subcommittees will follow the Open Meetings Act. None of your minutes have been posted on your website for 2019.
Okay,
Is that true?
I don't know, I'll look into it.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.